Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 2018 Senior Executive Summit for the Esri User Conference. I think you have a wonderful day ahead of you and a wonderful few days here in San Diego. I should introduce myself. My name is James Fallows, Jim Fallows. In my day job, I'm a writer for the Atlantic magazine. I'm a longtime friend of Esri, longtime friend of its leadership, a frequent attendee at these conferences, which is why I'm so excited to be your guide, your host, your navigator through the day that we have ahead. Here's a question to give a sense of the audience. For how many people here is this your first Senior Executive Summit you've attended? And I'm going to assume for the rest, it's not the first. So we have, I should say a little bit about, for those who've been before, how this one connects to the long series you've been to over the years. And for the ones who are here for the first time, why we think this should be, we think, hope, and expect this will be such a rewarding and enjoyable day for you. You know by being here yourselves that one of the traits of the SES is having a very high level of attendees, people like you within this room right now. You also will see that the speakers we've chosen are from very high levels in their companies, from a wide range of organizations, from actual companies, from NGOs, from governments, from civic groups, and showing some of the range of the applications that the science we're all interested in is applied here. The theme of the conference as a whole in the week to come, as you'll see through all the exhibits, is inspiring what's next. We're going to be exploring all the ramifications of that today and in the days to come. And tomorrow morning, in the one absolute can't-miss event of an entire user conference with Jack Dangermond's plenary address, he's going to go into the things that actually are what's next for Esri and for the technology that you all use. He's going to speak to us in just a minute, but he's going to save a lot of his thunder on what's next for tomorrow. Today, he's giving us the intellectual, the technological, the commercial, the political backdrop to how we got to where we are now. I want to say a word about how I think about inspiring what's next as a prelude to the speakers you're going to see through the rest of the day. It's really interesting to me that we've reached a point with GIS where talking about what's next for it is a little bit like talking about electricity, what's next? You know, biological knowledge, what's next? Computing power, what's next? Mobile connections, what's next? The point is that in histories of all technologies that matter, there is this phase shift where they go from being interesting in themselves to being interesting and important as parts of everything else. That you can't build anything in modern society without electricity or materials knowledge or biological knowledge or any of the rest. And that, as the video you just saw gave you a preview, the science of where the GIS applications are essentially part of everything that modern people do now. And I think that is the leitmotif you're going to see woven through a lot of the presentations, what this means in civic life, what it means in sustainability, what it means in security, what it means in any other application you can think of. And again, a fascinating point is that in the histories of some technologies, it takes centuries to go through that shift from a technology interesting in itself to a fundamental part of everything else, say with metallurgy or whatever. Sometimes it takes decades, as with electricity or with mobile connections. Sometimes it's visible within the history of one company. And what's fascinating is the company history that's embodied in this conference with Jack and Laura Dangermond and their colleagues really does encompass this entire technological shift from being something that was fascinating in itself to now being part of everything else. We're going to hear about the implications for all of that. So before I turn the stage over to Jack in just a moment, a couple of guidance bits of information for the day ahead. I will be here, you'll see more of me between each speaker. I'll say, okay, here's what we've just heard from the speaker, here's how it's connected to the next one, here's what we're going to be discussing in the panels, and I will dismiss you for the breaks and lunches. You'll see that we've built in a lot of discussion time between sessions and a very long lunch period, not too long, properly long lunch period, so that everybody will have a chance to meet your counterparts here, make connections that last in the long run, discuss what you've just heard. We'll keep things on time, and I think by the end of the day, we have a couple of panels where we'll sum up what we've heard, and then we'll have some closing thoughts. Now I'm going to give you Jack Dangermond, about whom you think you know almost everything. You know what he's meant to this company, but there's one thing probably that I think personally is worth adding to the record that's happened since the last user conference, and is an important part of what's next generally for Jack and Laura as a family, for the company they've built, for the science you're all working with. As many of you may have heard, but some of you may have not, just before Christmas of this past year, just before the end of 2017, Jack and Laura announced a conservation gift that was the largest gift the Nature Conservancy has ever received in its history. It was a gift of $165 million to But wait, there's more. And it was for the Nature Conservancy so they could purchase and preserve unto perpetuity the part of the California coastline around Point Conception, where the California coastline makes that dramatic bend from east-west to north-south. It's one of the environmentally richest and most sensitive areas in the entire North America, certainly in California, because you have the currents of the Northern Ocean meeting the Southern Ocean. You have the flora and fauna of Northern California meeting Southern California. You have really an invaluable ecological resource that Jack and Laura decided they were going to purchase for generations on into the future, and the Nature Conservancy is preserving it for them. Here is why that matters. Those of us who have known the Dangermond family over the years know that quietly they have been benefactors to all sorts of charities for decades and have never wanted any publicity. In this case, they wanted the donation to be known for the example it would set, both to other people of means like themselves who could say, in addition to the other charities I'm trying to fund with my new resources, sustainability and preservation is a really important one. That was one power of example they wanted to give. The other was a sort of homelier power of example, saying that individuals, families, small organizations, NGOs in their own communities, whatever their resources, can begin this work of preservation. I mention this both because you should know it about our next speaker, but also because it's part of the forward-looking orientation of his family, of the company, of the technology that you're using here. It's thinking about what's next, whether it's in preservation, whether it's in location science, whether it is anything else. So with that, I ask you please to join me in welcoming the President of Esri, Jack Dangermond.
Thank you, Jim. He has succeeded in thoroughly embarrassing me. Thanks. But it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you here. Some of you are my dear friends. We have worked together collaboratively on so many things, and I'm really proud of that relationship. It's just an amazing thing. The purpose of this meeting is to get together and share what we're doing and learn from each other, build some new relationships. And there are, thank you, by the way, all of you new who have come here. There's lots of opportunities in the next couple of days to build new relationships. And I think if I was to abstract the purpose of this meeting, it is really to help you in your success in life. And clearly, this group, you are distinguished in what you do. You didn't get in this room for showing up. You got in this room because you are leaders and you have created things that are really meaningful. So at the beginning of this meeting, I always like to have you all stand up and meet one of your colleagues, a new leader, somebody new, and tell them who you are and hear also from them a little bit about what has made their life so magnificent. Could you do that for me now? I know everyone in this room is is trying so hard in your work to make a difference. And when you hear that kind of voice from other people, it's just so powerful, isn't it? I mean, it's just amazing to me. Jim asked if I would give a kind of update to Esri. Some of you know us very well. Some of you, for the first time, are learning about us. We are a company, private company, and our DNA is wired in such a way that it's, in other words, our objective is, our sense of purpose is all about serving our users and advancing GIS and this science. And we work hard at that. We're really interested in introducing analytic thinking and creating systems that help people organize their work. And the business side of that, our report is that we're strong and our growth is actually accelerating. After these 50 years, it's quite extraordinary to me. Our values are caught up in strong engineering and science and implementing that science into what our users do. And so in the process of building these products and supporting you, we also have greater than just this business relationship in mind. It is in the process of doing our work, we're also aspiring to make a difference in a greater setting. We are organized, much like your organizations, into different divisions. We have about 1,200 engineers who are working on products. They build this technology, ArcGIS. And then teams that provide services to organizations. We're in service to our users in various forms. And we do make money, but we invest that money back into R&D. About 31% of our revenue goes back into, has been going back into feeding the advancement of the basic technology. Our users represent about 350,000 organizations around the planet. Now about almost 6 million users. And they are organized in different kinds of organizations. This gives you a little profile. And they're doing interesting work. At this moment in time, as Jim very nicely put it, we're moving from GIS being a kind of exotic or something that's implemented for specialized purposes in specialized divisions to the concept that it's becoming fundamental in our society. It's helping organizations do their work better. It's not new work. It's accelerating or improving or transforming the way people do their work. And in that sense, look, this is not successful for a casual reason. It's successful because there's business value inside of the implementation. As many of you know in this audience, I mean, this audience is just amazing in terms of the leadership that you're providing to create, I would say, a better world. This sort of, in addition to getting the base work done in composite, it's having the net effect of being a positive force. And in that sense, it's the reason why I'm so excited when these meetings happen, is I get this insight of, wow, in composite, it's just literally transforming how we think. The applications are too numerous to go through. I just, in getting this presentation together, I grabbed a few, and you can just glance at them. In land information, in renewable energy, in making communities safer through public safety and disaster response. And you'll see many more of these tomorrow, and you'll see the evidence that it's not only helping make our world a better place, it's helping us lay down the fabric to create a better world. And I just want to take a moment and acknowledge again you who are often in the leadership positions of making these happen. It's helping us deliver value, like everything from the supply chain and commercial activities, business analytics, to seeing the world in new ways, helping us create a healthier world, from Ebola to normal influenza in communities. It's helping us link the whole world of Earth observation and remote sensing to the challenges that we're facing, agriculture, environmental challenges on land, and now increasingly in the oceans. So these, again, I want to emphasize, are not simply little footprints of work. They're beginning to show up as enterprise platforms. And those of you who are CIOs in the audience, or IT builders in organizations, will quickly realize that this is not simply a mission application. It's also a background enterprise system with multiple applications that are providing cross-cutting work, the ability to fabric together organizations. In the room next door, there's about 350 senior executives in business, and they're going through, with different examples, what's going on there. Likewise, it's increasingly becoming an enterprise platform for government. From the highest levels, like the UN's attempt to support the global sustainability goals, bringing all the nations' separate information together to report status, but also in states and in cities and in federal agencies. NOAA, for example, or the community of Abu Dhabi. It's just magnificent what's going on. Underneath this is this concept of the science of where. The science of where is actually a framework and a process for creating and applying geographic knowledge. It starts with measurement, bringing all the measurements, local measurements, GPS measurements, traces, synoptic measurements into a system that can be visualized and analyzed and used to create understanding that can drive scenario planning and designing and decision making, and ultimately taking that knowledge into action. It's leveraging the power of my favorite field, geography, the science of our world. Yes, isn't it cool? And so from a positive force perspective, your collective work, whether you're in the measurement business or in the modeling business or in the planning business or in the action business, this integration, holistic integration, is the thing that for me gets me up in the morning every morning. The science of where is a kind of a foundation concept for applying geography, and we use the instrument of GIS. And now, increasingly, the instruments of mapping and location intelligence, which are growing very rapidly across organizations. Simplified versions, you might think of it as, of GIS, that people can simply sit down and start to use. And we'll see this explosion that's occurring again and again tomorrow in the various sessions that are delivered. What is GIS today? Those of you who are in the information system business will quickly realize it's a kind of system for organizing and managing and applying geographic information. And what is geographic information? Almost all information is geographic in some way. Almost all information is geographic or spatially related. And also for solving problems holistically. This is the grand vision. And it's also all about these three basic components. It involves integration, integration, and integration. It's also about computation, geographic computation, or analytics, or modeling, whether it's AI and machine learning, or simple arithmetic and logical manipulation of data. And lastly, it's a language of communication. It's a new language in the sense of mapping and visualization. And I don't need to build a case for you. You're seeing it already in your organizations. This idea that it drives understanding within your organization. But going back to Jim's opening remarks, it's also becoming a language for society. And it's very intuitive and natural for us all to see and get it. And this technology, therefore, has become a kind of enterprise platform. Systems of record, systems of analytics or insights, and systems of engagement are, in a way, three pillars that move into supporting all aspects of an organization. And it uses the power of location or the power of where to integrate all the things, the people, the processes, and all the data about them. So I'm sorry to go through this so slow and systematic, but I want to make sure we are all together and grounded on these basic principles. Because what's next requires, at your level, at the senior executive level, sort of a grounding foundation to understand what's going to happen. And what's happening is all sorts of innovation is being integrated into this platform. Huge amounts of data from just about every kind of device that's accelerating. We're measuring everything that moves and changes, and increasingly in real time. And second, the amazing computational innovations that are occurring from just making machines faster, Moore's law, which continues to exponentiate, to the idea of new architectures, distributed computing, microservices, et cetera, to the integration of AI and machine learning. Of course, these tools are not just for GIS, but man, being able to integrate them in is so powerful. And finally, as you'll see tomorrow, lots and lots and lots of new innovations occurring within GIS itself. And this is fueling a kind of new pattern of GIS. We like to call it web GIS. Easier, more accessible, reachable by anyone, available by anyone. WebGIS is what we like to call or refer to as a modern GIS pattern. And it's grounded in this concept of sharing and collaboration. I make maps as an individual. I can share them with my whole team or my whole organization, or even beyond to my community. And I leverage the technology of web services. It's like geo-dial tone, pick up the phone, dial tone the geography into my work. And that architecture is allowing us to rapidly distribute our work. So you and I can share, even though we might be in different organizations, content and services, and integrate them using the power of location. This idea of map overlay, which is the front end to these vast amounts of information that are increasingly becoming available everywhere. Now, what is making this WebGIS so powerful? First, as we move from client-server technology or desktop technology to this dial tone vision, we're beginning to see organizations totally re-envision their workflow. That's very exciting. I mean, the first generation was, and many of you went through it, the idea of digital automation. We will automate what we do sequentially. Wow, save money, save time. We're moving right now, ladies and gentlemen, from that to the idea with services and interconnections, to the idea that our organizations are all doing different sorts of work all at the same time in a sort of real-time integrated operation. And the next speaker, who will need no introduction for many of you, is going to talk about that very transformation that's happening at one of the largest geography organizations in the world, the NGA. They have moved from segmented pieces of work to the idea of connecting these with web services to bring knowledge together for the entire planet. And this is, the bottom line here is, these words are interesting to me. It's not only changing things, it's changing fundamentally how organizations as a whole do their work. It's, I would say, integrating the enterprise. There's most of you work in a setting where there's really large numbers of users. And in the past, there's been this GIS department over here. You need a map, let's go down the hall, get these guys to do work for us, make a map, do some specialized kinds of analysis. But what is occurring is this idea of ubiquity of geographic information across the organization. And that has the effect of using geography to do cross-cutting thinking in a shared, transactional, real-time environment. I'm repeating myself here. You guys getting bored with this? I suppose you are. Okay, I'll get off it now. Because the components of it are what is magical. What's making this so compelling is that all of a sudden it's much easier and more accessible and interconnected. A whole network of little technologies that are all designed to work together. Web maps, web apps, smart mapping, open access to the data through hubs and location analytics, spatial analysis on demand, all fueled by powerful data and analytics in a distributed environment. So it's a whole new approach. It's a whole new approach for organizations, and it's also a whole new approach for GIS itself. Let me drill into a couple of these. Web maps, which are actually a technical specification, and apps are supporting the idea of communication and collaboration across organizations. What one individual does can be seen by the organization as a total. And what the organization is doing can be shared with total communities. Example of this is what's happened in Abu Dhabi, where they've opened up their data with portals to a whole new audience of individuals. And Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles is doing the same thing, and in Washington, D.C., they're doing the same thing. And so this notion of using maps as a common language is catching on. You will see tomorrow story maps being told. Story maps are a kind of web map. Every day, and it's hard to believe this for me, every day, millions, actually, every week, tens of millions of web maps are looked at. I mean, story map web maps that are telling a story, both inside organizations, but also beyond. And the impact of that is people are starting to think spatially, not just where is it, how do I get there that I can do on a Google map, but bringing the fabric of geography together. And again, I don't want to steal the show for tomorrow, but there's just tons of innovation that are fueling these various components and making it come alive. The platform that I'm talking about is emerging to support two communities. One community is what we might call traditional GIS. It's the system of record keeping, the system of analytics, and that is certainly advancing. But at the same time, the same platform is supporting this huge surge and growth in our respective communities, inside the organization and beyond to the public. Apps, like maps, are part of the magic here. These are some typical examples: field apps, business apps. The integration of geo into things like Power BI from Microsoft are just allowing the whole mapping world to be blended with the BI intelligence world. Viewers, story maps, dashboards that are real time are enabling it. But this is only a small part of the story. The web app builders that now travel with the technology, last year over 500,000 new apps were built accessing enterprise systems on the open. So today we can build an app in a few minutes to a few hours, moving some widgets around, no programming required. So the net effect of this is causing this explosion in the field with field operations for collecting data, and then at the same time seeing field operators in the enterprise, watching what they're doing, coordinating their work, So field workers today working in the issues of Ebola in Africa are being looked at in real time in Geneva. That's so exciting to me. And their work captured, viewed, all at the same time. This idea of interconnecting the field with the main office. And the main office suddenly can give guidance back to the field worker. All this happening at the speed of light. That's changing the way organizations as a whole do their work. Also, innovations in mapping, smart mapping, where we have dynamic visualization of data. We don't have to be a sophisticated cartographer. We can use machine rules to make beautiful maps. Just mere mortals can become cartographers. Isn't that neat? And also, at the same time, more automation in things like high-end production systems for sophisticated carto. And then this notion of embedding services into Adobe and Microsoft products, or spreading out. And I call these out because these didn't just happen magically. These capabilities required engineering and thoughtful engineering that had as a vision the idea of moving it out, moving location intelligence everywhere. And it's becoming 3D, visualizing the whole world on a globe, but also visualizing the whole world in my mobile device now. We'll see some examples of this tomorrow. And richer analytics. Again, not just the powerful, heavy-duty, professional, data science-oriented geodata science tools, but also a whole generation of lightweight location intelligence tools with drag and drop and quick visualization are now possible. Imagery. Historically, we've thought of imagery as a whole separate field. The whole world of remote sensing has now been integrated into this platform notion so that we don't need to be an image specialist or a GIS specialist any longer. These are just multiple data types that I can work on and exploit. Today, we can read in data from virtually any sensor, bring it into our GIS program, and do things like analytics, change analysis. We can integrate with AI learning systems to be able to detect particular objects. And increasingly, this is becoming real time. With full motion video, I can be flying a drone and seeing things at the same time, analyzing things at the same time, making decisions. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is just beginning. I mean, we live in this world which is exponentially, expanding. Technology is allowing us to reach into our cities and in the environment with sensor networks that give us real-time, IoT-based observations. Integrating that in means that my organization operates differently. And today, it's not just about collecting my own data, it's about integrating in other data. Today, in ArcGIS Online, for example, there are over 17 million data sets that have been shared. It's like breathtaking. And every day, about 1 billion maps are made from that huge library, that growing library, so I can find just about any geospatial data I want. And that doesn't just happen. It happens because users are sharing their information. They're sharing their dial tones, not only inside their organization, but increasingly using the policies of open data and open sharing. They're helping each other, maybe not by edict or design. They're just choosing to share. And that is so powerful, because in addition to helping you get your work done better, we're also contributing to a larger context of sharing and collaboration. I'll spend a lot of time on this
tomorrow when we talk about what's next. These systems are increasingly easily configured, taking components, shared open source components, and putting them together into pre-configured patterns that respond to very specific workflows in communities, in utilities, in emergency management, and so on. Well, this brings me to the end of my talk. And perhaps for some of you, it will be, especially as managers, one of the most important parts, which is implementing these systems. What your staffs do requires a lot more than technology. Okay, I'm really interested in technology. Can't you tell? It's what drives my life. I love that idea of advancing both the science and the technology of it. But to really make it work, I've had the opportunity to look deeply at many of your organizations. I watch what the patterns are, where they're truly successful, and some of your organizations are incredibly successful. I could just look around the room and call you out. And I've been thinking a lot about what I can say about that. And here are a few thoughts. First, vision and leadership at the executive level, like you guys. And involvement in this stuff is really key. Otherwise, it just doesn't happen. I'm not saying that you have to do it. You just have to step up to understand what this is about and then get involved in it. It doesn't mean that this is some kind of religion or something. It's just like, wow. Successful systems have executive involvement. They also have a kind of number two person, which is a champion. And that person has a strong understanding of the mission of your organizations. You know that person in your organization? Raise your hand if you know them. Yeah. Without that person, okay, you can have all the vision you want. It doesn't work. It's not just about vision. It's also having that person and picking that person and then supporting that person. They have to know what the hell is going on as the core mission of your organization. And then that person has to understand the business value of this. It isn't just, I believe this religion, let's make it happen. No. What kind of money are we going to save? What kind of efficiency are we going to drive? How can we transform the organization to make it better? And that's, again, just not airy-fairy stuff. It's the hard work. It's designing the data models. It's then understanding the cost of that and understanding what IT resources are necessary. It's understanding the risk that's associated with this. And you, ladies and gentlemen, have to understand that risk. Be strong managers. Well, what really are we going to save? What's the real value here? It doesn't. This whole evolution isn't happening without that kind of involvement. And then having realistic timetables. It's, again, bottom line, get it done in 6 weeks, get it done in 1 year. That kind of discipline is required. And then I think on an ongoing basis, watching again your systems evolve over time, it's having that right governance system. As leaderships change, and they often do, we need to have some kind of continuity that happens for the maintenance of these systems, where they're delivering the infrastructure value. The last comment I'll make is it really does require good people, not just at your level, but people that are in your organizations. And being able to motivate, to support, to nurture those people. It isn't just like finding a star, but under your guidance, it's creating your existing people into these incredible good people. You know what I'm talking about? It isn't, I got to go recruit somebody. It's under your guidance, being able to get good people show up. Because my belief system is people are good. They just need the right kind of nurturing and support to be able to let them bloom. And also a culture of collaboration. In preparing for this summit, I thought, I came across this article and I just love this, this quote. I just love this quote. It's collaboration moves at the speed of trust. And what I think Chris had in mind was not just some smart alecky remark, but it's what he called forth, at least in my mind, was, what do I need to do to create that sense of trust among my staff so that they are collaborating more effectively? Because we all know that a collaborative organization moves much faster.